People don't hear. So if there's questions, feel free to ask. Is there any questions? Yeah?
For example, let's say you want to read the Quran, right? But you don't really understand it, right? And it's very important to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, what He wants to let you know. So if you want to read the Quran and understand it, is it dangerous to read it by yourself? Or should you go with an alim or someone or a learned Muslim so you could know the meanings? Or how do you do it?
So just say, it says, is it dangerous to read the Quran by yourself, or should you read it with an alim so that you don't have misinterpretation or what have you?
There's two matters here which we need to make very clear, distinct in our minds. Reading the Quran and reciting Allah's words is an act of worship by which Allah wants us to worship Him by. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said that when you recite the Quran, for every single letter you recite, you get 10 rewards. I do not say that Alif, Lam, Mim is a single letter, but Alif is a letter, Lam is a letter, Mim is a letter. So the actual reciting of Allah's book and worshipping Allah through reciting His words is a virtuous act which Allah, our Creator, wants Him to worship us by reciting His words. Okay. Now comes the other matter about understanding His message that He has sent to us, human beings, and to the jinns, and how do we now act upon this message after we've understood it. So here, as I mentioned, there are certain clear things in the Quran that it doesn't need necessarily a scholar to explain to you. I mean, when you come to the verse in Surah Al-Isra, وَقَدَ رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and your Lord has decreed that you worship none but Him, and you do all forms of kindness to your parents. I mean, when you read this verse, there's not much that needs to be explained to a human being. I'm only supposed to worship my Creator. I'm not supposed to take any other human being or any other creature, rock, stone, or whatever as my object of worship. And I'm supposed to do all forms of kindness to my parents. So this is something that human beings can understand, right? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيُصُمْ, that he who comes across the month of Ramadan, lets him fast it. This doesn't need much explanation. I know now that I'm in Rabi' al-Thani, it's not Ramadan. This is not the month of fast. When Ramadan comes in 4 months from now, 5 months from now we're in the month of fast, this is the time to fast. This is an apparent meaning of the Quran. Now there comes other things which are very, very, very particular to that. And even those two examples I gave you, if you were to look at the verses very clearly and contemplate the way that the verse has been composed and the grammar, there's a lot of meanings to it. Okay, so for instance, they say like in the first verse, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Okay, and unto your parents ihsanan. Okay, so here they say in the Arabic language that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't mention a verb in this thing, it said, and unto your parents good, right? It therefore means all forms of good, and not a specific form of good. And so that's why not a specific form was mentioned in the ayah, but it was left open. So that any form of good to your parents you should do. You see, not a specific type of good. Okay. So so this is obviously an additional meaning that one would get. But the general meaning of the ayah, people would understand. Now, should one not read the Quran unless he has a scholar with him? No. But when you have a passage in the Quran which is difficult for you to understand, okay, you should do what the Prophet's companions did. They asked the Prophet Mohammad ﷺ. And in your case, you should ask those who have inherited the knowledge which the Prophet ﷺ left to humanity, which is the knowledge of the religion of Islam. So those who have studied it and learned it, seek them out and learn and ask them. I always suggest to young brothers and sisters, keep a little notebook with you. Whenever it pops in your mind a question regarding your religion, jot it down. And whenever you have an opportunity to come across somebody, you can ask them. And, inshallah ta'ala, these things will be cleared up now.
If there's anyone that's too bashful to ask a question, you can also write it down and give it to anyone that has the organizer patch on them, and they'll pass it up to us, and we won't even know who asked the question, so feel free. At this point, I guess if there's no more questions, we'll take a break, and we'll start again at 10 after 11. So please try and be in your seats. Also, leave something on your seat so no one takes it. Okay, so leave a jacket or a book or something. Is that okay?